I didn't know that there was a place where I can go to say, okay, I've been attacked by this, a government agency within that policy of government, that to say, hey, I've been attacked, what do I do? Did you know that there was something like that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, you knew?
Yeah.
And you didn't tell us?
Well, we are also, basically IT security companies also provide such services. Businesses approach IT security companies for, consultations, for, need assessment, and also for guidance, basically, as to what they can do.
So where do we go? Let me take it up to Mr. Odotai. Mr. Odotai, you were the one that mentioned that government policy about cyber protection, which was signed in 2015. Yeah. Now, apparently there's an agency there. Has that agency been effective? And do Nigerians even know? I mean, Ifeanyi talked about more awareness. Olufemi talked about more awareness. Is that agency even aware of its responsibility to Nigerians in the face of this ransomware that are seeming to come from around the world?
Yeah, well, it is actually not an agency, it's an infrastructure within the Office of the National Security Advisor. It's called the NGSET, meaning Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team. What that entity does is they look around the internet and monitor infractions and trends, and then produce reports to warn Nigerians generally, but they also have a relationship with industry, sensitive industry like the banking and financial sector, where they have communication set up where the bankers and guys that are doing security audit and so on and so forth on the side of the banking and financial service organization are alerted way ahead of time as soon as the organization becomes aware of trends that tends to affect the functionality of the financial sector and services network. But the problem is that the law that requires individuals to report is somehow subjective. The law doesn't ask for report as a matter of fact. It asks for a report based on the attack being seen as something that can affect the next entity. So the reading of the law doesn't allow mandatory report as it should be. So it says that if your system is attacked and you feel that that attack can spread to the next person or the next infrastructure, then you are bound to report. And the report is also criminal in the sense that if you don't report, I think there's a 2-year potential imprisonment and some fine. I think that's some aspect that needs to be tweaked. I think reports should be encouraged and it should be made to be natural as opposed to being punitive. The other thing which Femi mentioned is the need to report on network infrastructure, infraction that affects data. We don't have a data protection law in Nigeria. The reason why we even become aware of anything happening around personal data or corporate data is because in most countries you have a law that makes breach notification mandatory, meaning that if you are someone who operates using individual data, once your network is breached and you see the potential of the data being affected, you are by law required to announce such a breach, warn customers, and then make that information public. Also, you must inform the public on the efforts you are making, the attempt, or strategy you've taken to remediate, to restore the network and bring services back on. We don't have this in Nigeria, and it is very sad because everything around communication is centered around data. So if we don't have a law that is centered around protecting data and making sensitive communication around networks protected in the sense that once an attack happens, information is relayed not only to law enforcement, but also to the individuals affected, then we are, to that extent, not very, very protected, not very secure. And this is at a time when we only have 1 or 2 major sectors really integrated in technology. one is the communication sector itself, and the other is the financial sector. We are very, very safe in the sense that we're not like Ukraine or a lot of these other countries where they're together and create enabling environment to create a culture of cybersecurity in the country such that when sensitive data that are being used or utilized in a critical sector is affected, there should be alarm bells ringing all over the place. Because that's the only way you can ensure continuity of service. That's the only way you can ensure that technology is utilized as the real engine of growth to grow the economy. As it is right now, we are actually just teetering on managing consumer confidence. The reason why a lot of people don't report is not only because they are paranoid, but we should have an attitude that is close to that. Be suspicious of all the communication you get, because someone who knows you knows who you have contact with can spoof an email that you're of a colleague or a friend and then use that to attack your system. The second is that we have to build trust between government and industry. Right now, a lot of attacks are not reported, and when they are reported, it's always post facto. So government is not enabled to actually go in and conduct forensic activities and take it as a learning curve and enable some kind of remediation and activities against a repeat of such an activity. Now, the last is that law enforcement has to be encouraged to step up its action in terms of actually taking hackers or offenders to court and having them tried, so that we can also develop jurisprudence in this area. A report came out from the CBN recently that hundreds of thousands of attacks have happened in our payment systems. And then when you look at the other side to say how many of these attacks, having been criminal by virtue of the law that I mentioned, how many of them have actually been investigated, how many people have been charged, how many cases have been convicted. I mean, we discovered that a whole lot of gap exists between infractions online that actually result in a lot of money being lost and activities on the right-hand side from the law enforcement agencies in relation to investigation and prosecution. So I think these three things should work together, and then hopefully we would overall develop a culture of cybersecurity, and we'll continue to use the technology environment to grow our economy.